Morning, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And then we'll move immediately to item number 2. Actually, no, I'll take that back. Sorry. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any public members here today, but I just wanted, for consistency, I'm just going to read the following. If there are any members of the public that wish to comment during this meeting, they will be given the opportunity to do so during the non-agenda public comment period on any topic, but not on today's agenda. Or they may speak on a specific agenda item during the public comment period for that item. For agenda items, public comment will follow staff presentation and before board member deliberation. Any member of the public that wishes to speak must complete a speaker slip in advance of the agenda item being called, indicating which items they want to speak on. Members of the public will be allotted 2 minutes to speak. If a member of the public wishes to speak, please wait in the designated public seating area and wait for your name to be called. For board members, you may ask clarifying questions of the public after their testimony. However, no action can be taken by the board that is not an agendized item. Okay. Item number 2, do we have anybody participating?
No.
No, nothing on board.
Okay, we don't have any.
Two people.
Well, no, Joanne,
Those are county
those are county staff,
Gotcha.
no board members.
Okay, very good. All right, moving on to item number 3, non-agenda public comment. We do not have any members of the public here today. So we'll move on to item number 4, approving the minutes of the September 17th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Moving right on to item number 5, recycling and household hazardous waste programs.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Michael Wetzeler. I'm the Program Manager for Department of Public Works, Solid Waste Planning and Recycling. We are responsible for diverting waste in the unincorporated areas of the county. And giving you just a quick overview of my presentation, and I'll get into it. So I'm going to go over, just for those that might not be aware of the history of waste in our region, cover some of the details on state legislation, our county and state goals, waste diversion goals, and then I'll share our plans on meeting our board's waste diversion goals, as well as talk about some of the programs we're implementing and progress towards reaching those goals. And during the program and the presentation, feel free to stop me anytime. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. All right, with that, I will go to the first slide. All right, so back in,
Check your name to see this. To use this one.
okay.
Oh, that's right. Sure. Here it is. Okay, no. Perfect. No. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. So as we're just discussing, it might be helpful just for those that might not be aware to just go over a brief history of the county's waste and kind of history of waste in the region. So for many years, the county owned the landfill system for almost all the landfills in the region. So Otay, Sycamore, Ramona, San Marcos, Borregos, Springs, many of those. The only one that was municipally owned is the city of San Diego's Miramar landfill. The county also operated some rural bin sites where we allowed residents to grow materials, and theirs at a reasonable cost. But in 1997, the county sold the landfill system to a company named Allied Waste, which is now Republic Services. And so at that time, then Miramar Greenery and landfill was the only publicly operated facility. Other than that facility, the rest of the region's solid waste facilities, recycling facilities, those are all privately operated. All the waste haulers that were operating at that time, they were then granted permits so that they could haul waste and recyclables in the unincorporated areas. And our system in the unincorporated area is called the non-exclusive system, where we have multiple haulers. And so the competition then occurs between the service provider and the resident or the business that's using their services. So our system is in that manner. The city of San Diego also has that for their commercial multifamily. For their single family, they collect, but for those others, they do municipal collection for single family homes. So other than that, in the rest of the region, all the other cities just have an exclusive system where there's one hauler. Those jurisdictions, on a periodic basis, every 10 years or so, they will go out, ask for proposals from those service providers, and then pick the one that has the best rates and services. All right, so moving on to some of the state mandates and goals. And I'll just talk about some of the key ones here that are targeting waste reduction. But many of these were precedent setting in California and for the nation. But the first is AB 939. That set a goal for 50% waste diversion for all cities and counties in the state. It led to a lot of developments for expansions in recycling diversion programs. It also required cities and counties to implement various state required programs. AB 341 requires recycling at commercial businesses, multifamily complexes, public institutions. AB 1826, which affects those same groupings of organizations and required them to recycle organic materials. And then SB 1383, which went into effect in 2022, that targeted organic materials, but expanded and went further than the previous legislation, so requiring nearly all residents, nearly all businesses, with some exceptions, to recycle organic materials. It also expanded the amount of requirements for cities and counties. Cal Green requires jurisdictions to target construction demolition, which we refer to as C&D materials. SB 707, that established a extended producer responsibility program. And so those programs, if you're not familiar with them, it's asking the manufacturers and those that are involved in all the aspects of production of the product to take responsibility to take back those products at the end of the life, versus government taxpayers being responsible to fund that collection and recovery of the materials. So that's targeting used clothing and textiles, and will require those producers to create systems to collect those and recycle those materials starting in 2027. And then finally, SB 54 is another precedent-setting legislation that's an EPR program, and that requires producers of single-use plastic packaging and foodware to make those materials either recyclable or compostable by the year 2032. And then going down to statewide goals from our state agency, CalRecycle, there's a 75% waste diversion goal that they have overall for the state. They've also have a goal to reduce organic waste disposal 75% by the year 2025 compared to 2014 levels, and to reduce edible food disposal 20% by the same year. These goals have very close ties to the greenhouse gas emission reductions, because when organic materials go to the landfill, they create methane, and that's one of the more potent greenhouse gas emissions, 80 to 84 times the potency of carbon dioxide. So working to divert these materials also helps us meet our greenhouse gas emission reduction targets too.
All right, Michael, could you adjust the screen so you can see that bottom?
Oh yeah, it looks like it is a little off there. Let's see. Yeah. Is there a way to just minimize the screen so we
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. That looks like that's good. All right, thank you. Thank you for asking. All right, moving to the next one. So I'll go over our program for the unincorporated area. So obviously we want to ensure that we're complying with all the state waste diversion requirements, and also working towards waste diversion goals. Some of our key programs are outreaching to residents and businesses and schools to help them reduce waste and recycle more. Monitoring businesses and multifamily complexes to ensure that they're meeting state law and also county codes, requiring building projects to recycle materials, and also market development. We can expand the processing capacity of material to be recycled. As I mentioned earlier, we do not provide trash service, but we manage hauler that do that non-exclusive system so that that can be operated. We also are responsible for regional planning for waste and recycling in the region, and also track countywide tonnage disposal. For our unincorporated area, we implement the strategic plan to reduce waste, which was of our roadmap that was created in 2017 on helping us work to get to 75% diversion by the year 2025. And that goal has been expanded by the Board of Supervisors in the 2018 Climate Action Plan to 80% by 2030 and 90% by the year 2045 in the 2024 Climate Action Goal. And finally, our programs are implemented through an annual budget of $7 million in 15 steps. Did you have a question?
Yeah, so where are we at with the 75%?
Yeah, good question. So the way that the state calculates, the state is the one that calculates our diversion rates. And so for the year 2023, it takes them some time to go through all the numbers. We're at 61%, and that's for the unincorporated.
That's for 2023.
2023, right? So it's, yeah, 2 years in arrears that we get those figures from the state. But I'll show you some more data on our progress that's a little bit more timely.
To refer, yeah.
61%. All right, so we'll look at landfill composition. So we're just chatting about 2023. In that year, countywide, we had almost 3.5 million tons of disposal. For the unincorporated area, it was 500,000 tons. And there's our diversion rate for 2023, 61%. When we look at what's going to landfill on the bottom right pie chart there, you get a kind of a broad idea of what's been disposed. This is one of the waste composition studies that was done by the city of San Diego in 2012, 2013. It's the most recent one that's been done in our region that's very large scale. The state's done some other ones that's a little bit more recent, but this is the most localized one. There's very likely going to be another one that's done in the very near future. But nonetheless, using this as the base of analysis, the largest categories you can see here are organic materials at 34% and construction and demolition materials at the same level. So 2/3 of what we're disposing in those two categories. So really key targets for those, as well as if you look at just what's the single largest material type disposed, it's food waste, 15%.
So these are the numbers that are actually still going into the landfill currently.
But this is with analysis that was done in 2012, 2013, but it should be somewhat similar. With the changes that we've had with many of those state laws, like SB 13.3 and the organics diversion, we're hoping to see those numbers dropping, but we haven't done that local analysis yet. So, but there's other figures I can show in a little bit that speak to where we are. All right, so with those, looking at where are those, the types of materials that are going to landfill, we really focused in our strategic plan to hit on 3 key areas. So looking at franchise services, because those are the haulers that are hauling all these materials and setting some expanded requirements for them. Construction demolition materials and organics, as you imagine, looking at those waste composition study. All right, so programs that we've targeted here, you can see on the pie chart on the right, to hit our diversion targets, almost 3/4 of those diversion that we're looking for will come from hauler programs. And so key programs that we've implemented to help to try to divert those include changes to our solid waste ordinance and our franchise agreement. I'll go through some of those changes in a little bit, but for the franchise agreements, we've increased goals for the haulers, set waste diversion goals. We've also expanded what they're expected to do. And so expanding that from just waste and recycling to also organics for most of their customers, consistent bin colors, ensuring that there's adequate signage on the bins, and also in programs, education and outreach to customers, technical assistance to ensure that folks know exactly how to recycle and what to recycle. And then accountability too for haulers to ensure that those programs are rolled out effectively. All right, so in 2021, the Board of Supervisors made changes to our ordinance, and this was in alignment with the state regulations and also to help us work toward these diversion goals. On the left, most of those recyclable materials were already included. On the right, We added some organic materials, including food waste and food soil paper, and that's required in all the densely populated areas. In alignment with state law, there's some exceptions for those that live in sparsely populated areas, as defined by the population per capita in those areas. But for the most part, most people are required to recycle those materials. Looking at construction demolition materials, there was additional ordinances that have been changed by the board related to that. In the past, we had the threshold that was for additional oversight and requirements for projects that are 40,000 square feet and greater. In February 2020, the board dropped that down to 1,000 square feet and greater. It also increased the deposit, so projects wouldn't just build it into the cost of business and just pay the fine. But this deposit is an opportunity for projects to work toward meeting that diversion goal, which is 65% for their project. If they meet that goal, they get their deposit back in full. If they do not, then they would receive it back on a pro rata basis. But it's really helped to drive additional recycling in this sector. We also have started to franchise any of the C&D haulers, and also it expanded the requirements for those haulers to be the same as waste haulers. So they have similar diversion and reporting standards.
Are you saying if someone's building a home and they have a contractor that's doing the construction, there's a deposit that they pay as part of the building permit, or how does that work? How do they demonstrate that they comply?
Yeah, good question. So yes, they put a deposit down, and so they have the expectations to meet that 65% conversion rate. Methods that they can use to comply. EHQAB is one of the facilities in our region, has a construction demolition facility that accepts mixed materials, and so they have sorting lines that can separate that out. But a lot of the material, that very heavy inert material, the asphalt, concrete, all those very heavy brick, those kind of materials, those many times can go to other facilities. But the use of these mixed facilities has really helped us expand our diversion in this area.
How much, when you, like, if you're demolitioning and you just order a bin, like a big
Right.
bin, how
Yeah.
much comes in that? And
Yeah,
a
so
lot of stuff that comes in.
that's exactly why that facility that EHQAB operates over in Lemon Grove is so valuable, because that entire bin can then go to one of those facilities and,
Okay.
and then
then
be
they
separated
separate
out.
it.
Correct.
Okay.
And that allows you to identify the 65% overall conversion.
Yeah, that facility is, I believe the last that I've looked, I think they're up to almost 70% versions of that facility. It fluctuates over time, but that's about what they're achieving. Yeah, so, and then in that example then, what they would do is they would retain their receipts, and then they'd submit those to the county, and then we can determine if they've met standard or not. And if they have, then they get their deposit back in full. If not, then we prorate that.
Is it determined by weight or volume, or
By
how is
weight.
that? By weight.
Yeah.
I'm still
Yeah.
figuring that out too. I'm waiting as you're giving more information. I'm trying to understand, because I mean, a house is a lot. I mean, who's to determine how much is demo and how much is not? So
Yeah, so it's all the material that are going into those bins, it's all recorded by tons. That's what we use.
so just order a bigger bin.
So yeah, I mean, all those bins, the weights for those are all being accounted for in those receipts that we can evaluate it. But at the start, maybe it'd be helpful just to share at the start of the project, when they're coming in and they tell us, hey, we're going to build this structure, what have you. We ask them to do a plan, okay? And it helps them estimate based on the square footage of the building, the types of materials they might expect to generate. And so then they can start to plan for, okay, am I going to take the concrete materials from this? I'm going to take those to an inert recycler. Okay, the ones that I need to put just into a large bin and I don't have the ability to separate, that's going to go to a mixed facility. So it just helps them kind of forecast how they're going to work through it and achieve that diversion.
As C said the blind man. Now I get it.
And then so things like wood, does that then end up going to the greenery for being?
Yeah,
chopped up
yeah. So as long as it's not painted or not treated, Then those materials can go to a compost facility, a mulch facility. There also are some facilities locally that take materials for biomass generation. So all those could take that material. But if it's treated or painted, that's a problem. So those materials.
Yeah.
What about nails?
It could be reused, but they
So that's something that EHQA is then responsible for, then figuring out where to send the waste that they've been given.
Right, that's exactly right. Yeah, if it comes in that mixed bin, they're separating out what they can, and then there will be some residual.
Yeah.
We've asked about nails.
Yeah, nails can be pulled out. There's magnets on those materials when they're pulling it out, so they can get separated. But it can damage equipment. So there's some of the reuse facilities here. They'll actually pull nails and then repurpose the wood. There's a great organization here called the Reuse People. It donates a lot of lumber that's still usable. There's some really wonderful older homes with some great wood that's still great for reuse, but generally, facility it's going to chip that up. It'll be pulled by some of the magnets in there.
And then also, various artisans in the area can utilize it for art or whatever the case may be.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that makes sense. Now it's all coming together.
I will mention on the reuse side, you do need to have generally a specialized partner that's familiar with that, like Reuse People or some others, because you're getting into deconstruction. That's really moving up that higher end of the highest and best use of these materials. And so it's very valuable, but it does require a lot more planning. And so folks that have, that can take advantage of tax deductions, there's some great tax deductions when you're offering that to a nonprofit organization that can provide that tax deduction for that. So there are some good incentives in that area too.
I'm sorry, on the previous slide, you talked about unincorporated areas that they don't have to do organic in the asterisk there. Less than 2 cubic yards is the minimum, and to be exempt from recycling those materials. How much is 2 cubic yards? That doesn't sound like a lot.
Yeah, so 2 cubic yards is what the standard dumpster that you'd see behind a restaurant or business is generally 3 cubic yards. So it's a little smaller than that. If I remember correctly, it's about 96-gallon carts that you'd see at your house is equivalent to 3 dumpsters. So that would be about 4 cart equivalents to be 2 cubic yards. And that 2 cubic yards comes from a state requirement. They said all those that are greater than that, they have to recycle these materials. Those that are under would be exempt. And then they also, for these sparsely populated areas, we're talking pretty remote areas of the county, those are not required to recycle the food scraps, but they still have to recycle the green materials, so yard trimmings, that type of material.
Yes. So organic material, when you are composting, can you compost cooked organic food that is going to waste from restaurants?
Definitely, yeah. There's lots of the facilities have their green bins and are already participating in placing those materials in. But yeah, it doesn't matter if it's cooked or uncooked; they can both go right in. Good questions. All right, go on to the next one. So more about organic materials. So we've added several new programs with that change I mentioned to the ordinance we were just discussing. So haulers are now required to collect food scraps for residents and businesses. And also similarly, the expectation is that residents and businesses participate in these programs. By adding these laws, there's been some significant expansions too in the facilities that we have in the region to process those. EHQA is just one example, has built an anaerobic digestion facility in Escondido that is very large and helping to generate renewable natural gas. So as we were talking before, when those organic materials go to landfill, they're just going into landfill, they decompose anaerobically without oxygen, and they create methane. So that methane can escape from the landfill. It's a problem. It's a potent greenhouse gas. But if you put that all in an enclosed system, you can scrub that gas and actually use it for powering your fleet for the truck. So you can use it, put in the grid as a source of non-fossil fuel natural gas. So really valuable, and then the residual then can be used for land application for improving soils. Additionally, from the county's perspective, composting, anaerobic digestion, those are kind of the lowest bottom of the rung. They're better than landfilling, but there's greater opportunities up the value chain if we can prevent waste, if we can get that materials that are no longer edible that are no longer needed, it's surplus at our food facility, to get those to people in need. And then if it's inedible, to get those to animals that can feed on, that can use those. So there's lots of work that we've been doing on that. Also, I'll share, there's been some changes that have been made in the zoning locally. We've worked with our planning and development services to streamline some of the permit and regulations related to composting on site, so that farmers, for example, in the past, they weren't able to bring materials from off-site, say from a neighbor. We have a lot of horse ranches here, a lot of horse manure from that. And so in the past, they were able to compost their own materials, but they weren't able to do so easily from the neighbors. And so now if they have that interest in the equipment, they can bring materials from off-site and really streamline and make that process a lot easier. So those cover some of the big areas, but I'll go into more about some of our outreach and assistance programs too.
Can I ask you a quick question
Sure.
related? So a couple of years ago, I went to a conference and they talked about how China is not accepting a lot of the US recyclable material that were being shipped to China. And as a result, like state like California that were having a high recycling rate, it dropped significantly. Where are we with that? Like, are we able to recycle those materials that China's not taking anymore?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was an initiative that China started called Green Sword. And I think the issue primarily was that they were receiving China was receiving a lot of materials that not only had recyclable materials in the bales that are being exported, but also trash that was in there too. What you see from the recyclables that come out of San Diego versus some other areas of California, LA and some others that haven't had the same level of curbside recycling as we have since the early 90s. Some of those, the rates of contamination were pretty high. And so China said, we don't want to be dumped on. We want recyclables, but we don't want all this other stuff that becomes a burden to us. And so they limited the ability to accept materials. They still accept materials, but they have to meet contamination criteria. But what you've seen is that there's been higher tolerance for some contamination in some other Asian countries. So we still do have a considerable amount that goes, but just to different countries. And many times what will happen is they will clean up the product and then sell it then to China, because China just has a huge demand for lots of our recyclable materials. And if you had to know how big this industry is, it's, paper plastics are some of the largest exports that the U.S. Sends out to the rest of the world. It's really extraordinary. But there's also been greater developments too in expanding processing here in California too. There's our recycling market development zone that I help administer for North San Diego County. We have another person that manages it for South San Diego County. And so we help those interested processors to site here and also work through the permitting process. So we have seen more recyclers coming into the state and expanding that. But
And one last thing from me. So when you mentioned that San Diego has better program than LA, how do we compare with LA and San Francisco, like Bay Area and LA and Orange County?
Yeah, I think that, well, there's definite differences between all these different regions. Obviously, we're a smaller region than LA and San Francisco. Many of the areas in the Northern California Bay Area have much higher disposal rates. So it makes the economics of many of the diversion programs a little bit greater. And they also have invested from a ratepayer, some of the cost, additional fees that they pay and such that help go to fund larger diversion programs. So there's many in the Bay Area that are cutting edge, in the 70% and higher diversion rate, but they are paying a little bit a higher rate too. So there's greater levels for incentives and disincentives to move forward. But LA is relatively similar to San Diego, but they do have a larger infrastructure and processing diversion options. Thank you for the question. All right, so just kind of sharing with you some of the work that we do out in the field, working with restaurants and businesses and multifamily complexes. Our staff are working with condominiums. In this picture on the top right, you can see one of our staff that's working with the restaurant, providing green bins to help them divert their organic materials, both as they're prepping materials and then also in the back of the house and also the front of the house as well. And then blue bins too for those recyclable materials, and then providing signage and just assisting them to dial in their programs, either expanding existing programs, even also working through and implementing brand new ones. We recognize outreach and education as the foundation of our programs to help people change their behaviors and understand why. To get the word out, we have a waste-free household hazardous waste and recycling database, and that's helping the public find out where and how to recycle just about anything, but goes beyond that. We also look at reuse and repair as well, and so all of those, when you go to that website or you give them a call, it will help you prioritize how you want to manage those materials and find the closest location to do that. We also recognize the need to get the message out very broadly to the larger public, and so we see folks that want to recycle is what we call wishful recycling, where they want to recycle, they do so if they knew how, but they don't always. They have a great drive, but they need a little bit of additional information. So we've started this campaign called Recycle Right, and so that's helping people to understand how to recycle properly, understand what materials are recyclable. The studies that we've seen show that if they feel like they have trusted information from a family member or a friend or the government, then they'll be more likely to participate. So we've done that, and this last winter we've done an organics campaign. This one on the bottom left, that's called Good for the Green Bin, to encourage more participation in organics, and that's kind of one of the challenges that we're seeing now. We have the infrastructure out for all the green bins, but we're seeing lower participation rates with the food scraps. We recognize it's a new behavior for people, and so for them to get accustomed to that, we need to understand the why and also get excited about it.
So on the food bins, if you're putting your stuff in a food bin, you're more likely to compost it at your house. So I don't know how you account for that. Like you may say, oh, we're not seeing that in the waste. But maybe it's because people are using that.
That's a great point. Yeah, and there's lots of people that gardeners and others that see the benefit, that want to keep it in their added to their own local soils. So you're right. You wouldn't see that part, but it wouldn't be going to landfill when we do those waste composition studies. So it would be counted there, but you're right from the standpoint of you're looking in the bin, you'd say, oh, they're not participating when in fact they would be. But so in the micro level, it'd be difficult to tell unless you talk to them, but in the macro level, when we do the studies, we can tell. Yep. All right, and so then to accompany those campaigns, we have lots of resources, lots of guides and flyers, and as you can see here, we do our best to put that in multiple languages and on our website and also in print. Let's see, so for some of the numbers, since we have made changes to the franchise agreement, to our ordinance, we've expanded capacity significantly. This is a result of our haulers placing more bins, more dumpsters out in the community. It's expanded the organics capacity 330%. That's 15,000 cubic yards. So that's equal to more than 34,000 carts and more than 5,000 dumpsters. Since we already had a large presence of blue bins, of recycling bins, that expanded significantly as well, but the number is 100%, more than 100% increase. That's more than 17,000 cubic yards, equal to nearly 38,000 carts, or almost 5,700 dumpsters. For construction demolition, in the last fiscal year, we issued almost 700 permits and diverted a 76% diversion rate. That was 8,000 tons from those materials alone.
What is you mentioned the deposit for it. How much is the deposit? Is it based on the size of the construction project?
Yeah, it's 40 cents a square foot. So yeah, based on the size of the project, then just multiply that out. All right, continuing on some of the progress that we've had. For commercial, residential, industrial programs, we did 628 inspections, 545 programs that we assisted implementing, assisted and or improved, and 243 new programs that we implemented. And then for technical assistance, gave out 2,400 recycling bins, and through our efforts and our haulers combined, that was 661,000 promotional materials. And then through our staff and our contractors, I love Clean San Diego, there's a lot of presentations for us, 604 presentations to 33,000 students, residents, and businesses.
Okay,
Yeah.
those are really good numbers. Have you checked with surveys or something about how effective they are? So are
Right.
people really doing that?
Yeah,
what you're-
Great question. Yeah, so for when we're going out and, for example, we go to our multifamily complexes, we do a pre and post survey of those residents to see whether or not that's helping them to change behavior. And so we're seeing success in that. Yeah, but you're right. You got to make sure that the method works. It's no good just to do the presentation. For our haulers, most information I was sharing before was primarily done by our staff, but we also have expectations for the haulers. And so for the last calendar year, these are some examples of what the haulers have done. They provided nearly 442,000 educational notices to their customers, more than 3,250 technical assistance visits. They inspected 40,000 containers on their routes for contamination, and then where they saw contamination, then they sent notices, and that was 8,300 notices to remind customers how to participate effectively and what materials are recyclable.
So the haulers are the ones that are responsible for the contamination notice. It's not, it's not the county going around and doing that.
That's right. The haulers are doing that. Yeah, they're going through under SB 1383. There's a requirement that there's inspections on the containers to ensure that those materials are properly done. It's pretty neat these days with AI. They're picking up the materials. They've got a camera that looks down and they can identify materials that are contaminated within that.
Are there any penalties to the homeowners if
There's a possibility.
Yeah.
Generally, what the haulers will do first is to send out a postcard to say, hey, we noticed that you are, there are some contaminants in there, and then alert them to that. And so there's the potential that they could be fined, but most haulers are choosing not to. There are some that are going to fine them too.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
A lot of it does come back to having the right number of bins.
Right.
But so it's like on the cost of the bins, if you have like a regular trash bin and it costs the same as a green waste bin, are they looking at anything like, well, maybe the green waste bin costs less so that you won't put your green waste into the trash?
Right.
If you have extra, are they looking at like the cost of it all?
Yeah, there's strategies called pay as you throw, which oftentimes are looking to create a differential between the cost of the waste, which may be the greatest, and then lower costs for the recyclables and organics. There are costs to those programs, so it's not free by any means. They have to go to processing facilities if there's costs in there. So there are obviously need to be somewhat comparable, but many times you do see haulers that are able to offer a little bit lower rates for the organics and recycling containers, but by no means low cost. They're many times very
But that's up to the haulers to determine.
correct.
The city of San Diego just started, because I'm in the city, that they started charging for waste hauling. And
Right.
The recycling and the green bins have always been free, but they're charged now based on the size of your black container for the
Right.
trash, right? So it's a little bit, if you have the smallest one, it's less expensive than the largest one.
And that's generally what you see for most of the haulers is they use that kind of strategy where the black bin is the one that is the largest cost and the others are either discounted or sometimes it's included within the cost. It's kind of a package deal.
Yeah.
In my community, they are actually starting to charge for all three bins, and the bill will be sent as part of the annual property tax bill, I think. What I thought that the property tax was already paying for collecting waste. So this is in addition to that. So this additional money should be able to fund some of these improvements. Do you know anything about where this extra fund is going?
Yeah, I think it sounds like you're probably in the city of San Diego too. And so, yeah, it's got a long and colorful history with the city of San Diego here. In 1919, up until that time, residents were receiving collection from the city. And so most of the materials at that time were either organic materials that were being disposed of, other inert materials. And so a lot of that was being collected by the city and then sent to a big farmer that was being charged by the city to get that. And residents heard, hey, we're getting charged twice a year. We're getting charged and then the city's getting paid by that big farmer. We don't think we should be charged anymore. And so at that time, then in 1919, they did a whole measure that said that the city wouldn't charge for collection of those putrescible materials. Well, the waste stream has changed significantly since that time. And I think just the commentary, I think what it did was having to use the general fund to pay for all the costs for all residents to get service meant that then the city wasn't able to come up with these systems where you're saying, okay, we want to have an economic incentive to recycle more, to reduce that waste level. So you had some impacts from that. And then it also meant, as you said, there's less money to implement other programs. So I'm not going to speak for the city here, but I think it does offer more opportunities for them to chart a course toward greater waste diversion programs. Good questions. All right, so moving on to just some other programs where we can walk the walk in our mission here to reduce waste. We offer these community collection events. And so through these, we offer diversion options. Sometimes people used to think of these as just disposal, come and just bring all your trash. But we have partnerships with Goodwill that takes our reusable materials. We promote e-waste recycling, metal recycling, construction demolition recycling, and also commingled recyclables at these events where we're regularly doing these in the community and achieving 80% plus waste diversion. And so they've been very popular with the community. We really have had great response to these events. All right, we also are targeting household hazardous waste. And so all those materials that hide under your sink or in your garage, those paints, the cleaning products, the pesticides, oil, all that stuff, they're not going to the landfill. So we offer events and also we have household hazardous waste facilities where that can be dropped off so that there's no cost to residents and easy way to manage this. But as I was talking before about these extended producer responsibility programs, EPR, there's also been efforts to try to bring in some of these materials. For example, batteries are a big one that nobody wants to throw that in landfill. You know that there's some hazardous impacts from that. And so there's been some legislation that has now passed that will require manufacturers to take those materials back. They're in the rulemaking stage will be going into effect in the near future, but other kind of programs related to that to try to target these materials instead of a one-by-one, more of a kind of a blanket approach.
How does that actually look? Like how does Duracell take back?
Right. Yeah, so what you see in these examples is that there will be an overarching organization. They call it a product responsibility organization, producer responsibility organization, PRO, and they bring together all the companies. They all fund that together. They come up with a strategy for collection, set goals, and then start promoting. One example that you may be familiar with is Paint Care. Now, you might have heard things on the radio advertisement saying, hey, there's a location you can drop off your paint. And in the past, you had to take it to a household hazardous waste facility or event. Now, many of those distributors of paint and those that are selling paint will also take it back. So you can Google Paint Care and get locations. We can also go to our household hazardous waste website or call them up and they can direct you to the closest location. So they all fund it together and then are responsible to take it back.
Do you think there will be opportunities for funding for the county and the individual cities? Like I take my batteries, like the local fire station, when they do their household. Do you think there may be funding opportunities to fund these programs that the local governments are currently doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's some other legislation for sharps. And so sharps are for folks that need to have insulin and have other syringes that they need to use on a periodic basis. That program has had an EPR legislation. So now we have programs like that with our sheriff station. And so they have started funding collection that we have so we can still maintain those programs at those facilities and then fund it. So there may be similar options that come up, or they may say, you know what, our plan is that we'll take it back at all these locations in the community so you don't have to. So we'll have to see how it pans out.
How many of these do you do per year, the household hazardous waste events?
Yeah, so we have the collection at the facilities. We have multiple facilities throughout the county that accept it. on just about every other weekend. But then as far as facility or the events, they're a smaller amount. If you do free per year and spread them out through the wide geography of our large county.
About 30 years ago, I was doing a presentation, Mayor of Tijuana was giving it, and he said, we set up our battery collection in the schools. That's the children are actually the biggest generator of these batteries. And I thought that was clever. I don't know, it's hadn't caught on in the United States. So,
Yeah, we actually, we don't do it at schools, but we do collect them at our library, our county libraries. So that's the one that we found that, stretches into the community and hopefully a lot of people use, but a lot of kids there are getting books too. But neat idea. I mean, you got to find a community hub to roll these programs out and also educate. Yeah, thanks.
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can tell, I can't understand why the small butane cans, after you have used them, they can't be recycled. They're hazardous. Is it because there's residual gas inside?
Yeah, there could be residual in those materials, so you have to manage those properly. Yeah, and I'll just take a quick departure here. You may have heard recently about some of the fires in trash trucks and in trash recycling facilities. Precisely what you're saying. If those materials get into a bin and then they're compacted, you could have an explosion. Where we're seeing so much of these days are lithium-ion batteries that people are tossing in, and then if that gets into a truck and you catches fire, then those are several $100,000. If it gets to for a loss of a truck, if it gets to a facility, you're talking millions of dollars potentially. So yeah, it can be some really dangerous impacts, and another key reason why these materials need to be managed appropriately. All right, so looking forward, I hope the slides that I've shared so far kind of give you an idea of our programs, but we want to do more. That 61%, we recognize we have a couple of years still to get to that target, but nonetheless, we need to look forward toward the board's increased goals. And so we are looking to update our strategic plan to reduce waste. It was last brought to the board in 2017. And so we are in the internal process of gathering data and looking at some cost modeling of potential programs and policies that we can bring forward. And so next year, we're planning to reach out to the community to get input from them on what they think we should, what programs and policies they'd like to see us bring forward and include in those plans. So if you're in an unincorporated resident, we encourage you to participate, and we'll be looking for your feedback next year. And with that concludes my presentation, but really want to thank you for your attention and interest, and happy to take the other questions if you have them. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That was great. All right, moving on to item number 6. We need to elect a vice chair for the remainder of 2025. We have a vacancy, so I guess we're looking for volunteers to, anybody who would like to be the vice chair for the next
two
months.
months. And then at the beginning of next calendar year, the board will also then vote again on chair and vice chair, which could be the same two people that are going to be chair and vice chair for the next 2 months, but or whatever the board decides. So just because Kevin, who was vice chair, is no longer on the board, we have a vacancy, and so per our rules, we do need to have a vice chair just for the 2 months, and then again, the board will revisit this in January.
Responsibilities instead.
I know, I'm trying to follow the rules.
What are the responsibilities of the vice chair?
What are the responsibilities? I mean, it's when Scott is not here, when the chair is not here, the vice chair is the person that the department looks to help run the meetings. So it's really what Scott does, but just in only in his absence.
It looks great on your resume.
I mean, being a government employee, I probably might need to jazz up my resume.
Federal government employee.
Right? Or come over to the state side.
Or local county.
I'll volunteer for 2 months, unless Miss Toby, because Miss Toby has done it before. So.
That's fine. If you would like to do
No, ma'am. I mean, you've done it before, so I mean, if you want to take it on and there's no one else who's interested.
I'll nominate Ms. Swanson.
You're not very helpful. I don't even know you.
I'll second that.
There we go.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? You have a vote if you'd like to oppose.
Right, if I want to oppose myself.
All right,
As soon as
excellent.
you ask the first question, it's gonna be yours.
What are the responsibilities?
That's the biggest thing. What are the responsibilities? I don't want to fail you guys.
Great, thank you. All right, that's official then. Okay, looks like we're moving on to item number 7, updates from the executive office.
Yes, so Amy is on a very well-deserved vacation for the next 2 weeks. So JR and I are here to help cover for her. And I'll give the update from the DHQ executive office. So a couple things for most of you have been on our board for the past couple of years, so you already know this. Jared, you're new to this year, so I'll just give a little bit of background. We, according to county administrative code, which dictates the procedures and rules for this advisory board, the board is required to submit an annual report every year to the Board of Supervisors. So it comes from the advisory board. The department staff, we help from the administrative side write a draft and we bring it forward to you as a draft for you to review and consider, providing comments and then adopting, and then that ultimately is signed by the chair and that's sent off by January to the Board of Supervisors. And what we include in the annual report is a summary of what the board has done throughout the year. So we summarize the meetings that we've had, the topics that were discussed, some overall comments that you've provided throughout all the different meetings. And then we also highlight what the department has achieved. And we attach our, like, by the numbers that gives information on our different inspections and things like that. And then we also include things of what the board is interested in, topics that you've been interested in, maybe future topics. So it really is to summarize what's happened and throughout this year, and then what is the board's continued goals for this, the advisory board, because this is really important. You're all volunteering your time here. You all have incredible expertise and knowledge, and it's really important for you to be able to have that voice to say to our board of supervisors, here's why this board is important and what we hope to continue to achieve. So what we plan on doing, our next meeting is November 12th. It's a little bit earlier than we normally have because of the holidays and Board of Supervisors meetings. What we plan on doing is sending you a draft at least a week before. We want to give you as much time, kind of have a compressed schedule between now and the next meeting. But we're really at least a week, if not more, for you to review. If you can give us comments, Anna will be the one sending it out. If you have comments, you can send her the email and say, here's my comments on the draft, either in the email, or you can make comments and track changes on the actual document, or you can come prepared in our meeting next month. And this will be the main topic that we'll spend time. We'll put it up on the screen. We'll go through everything. And if everyone is in agreement at the board's discretion, you can vote on the final annual report in November. In the past, what's typically happened is that there are some additional comments that we then need to work on after that meeting. We bring forward a final draft in December, which is then typically voted on by the board at that time. Any questions?
So when do you need feedback on recommendations for either areas of interest or important things that we believe that the board of supervisors should know and focus on?
Yeah, if you have those thoughts in your mind, you're free to send that email to Anna and myself at any time.
Okay.
Or you could wait until you get the draft at least a week prior to the next meeting, and then you can respond with those comments in that email. You can also bring that to our meeting in November. It is helpful though, Jesse, if you have those comments already in mind, for you to send them as early as possible so we can make sure it's incorporated in the annual report, so that our meeting in November really can be in a short amount of time. We can go through the full report and we're able to accomplish, getting through that whole report and getting through everyone's comments so that we can bring back a final draft for approval in December.
Certainly.
So ideally, like Deb said, anytime up to the November meeting or during the November meeting, if something comes to mind, that sort of thing, is the ideal timeline. And then that gives time for us to incorporate feedback and things. And then in the December one, we'll have kind of a final report to go through, so to speak. I just wanted to highlight too, Deb mentioned it, but our staff helped draft it, but it really is board's report, and your feedback priorities are really important that we're capturing them. So we welcome the feedback, and we can tweak things as the board sees fit and all that. So just know that even though we're coming with a draft, it really should be reflective of capturing those thoughts and feelings and all that. So
Great, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions on the report? Okay. And then the other item is upcoming board letters. We don't have a lot of board letters for the rest of the year. We have our ongoing local emergency board letter that goes back to the board every 60 days or less for the Tijuana River Valley for an environmental local emergency, not a health local emergency. And then we do have an upcoming board letter for gifts and donations. So there's a requirement, county policy, a board policy that we do need to report when we do have gifts and donations from nonprofits or other groups. And so, and for transparency, we do have to bring that to the board for their authority to accept those gifts and donations. So we do have one of those board letters anticipated coming in by the end of this year to our board. That's a standard routine one that we have every year. There is not really anything else upcoming right now. The next board letters that are large ones are going to be springtime. As you recall, we have our fees, we have our budget, we have our vector control benefit assessment, but that's many months from now in spring and summer. So it's a nice kind of period of some very simple board letters for the next few months. That's it from the executive office, unless there's anything you have, JR, to add. Okay, so then I'll hand it over to the chiefs and they can give program updates and go over the ledge log. I'll just say before they jump in, you'll notice our ledge log is very short because we're only highlighting the bills at this point that we've been monitoring that have now been signed by the governor. Anything that we've been monitoring and watching that was not signed, because there's a 2-year legislation cycle, may actually, and we are in the first year, may actually come back next year. So just because something was being monitored and it didn't get signed, it may come back again. But in order to not overwhelm you with all those bills that at this point are potentially dead or no longer an issue, we'll have to monitor if they come back. We did not provide you those details. This is only those that have been signed that will have some type of influence, impact to our department. So with that said, Ryan, you're looking at me, you want to go first?
feel like I start on the order of the pages. Are we good to do it from here, or do you want us to stand?
I think from there.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan Johnson, one of the chiefs for our Food, Water, and Housing Division. First bill, and most of these I've already kind of gone over with you in the past. First one's our registered environmental health specialist bill that expands our allowances for environmental health specialists, giving them more time to take the state certification exam that they need, and expanding the educational allowances to help us recruit more RHS staff in the future. On the second page, we've got the AB 592. This is the bill that's going to allow food facilities to have open floor plans. So no longer enclosing their kitchens that are doing the full food prep. They do have to have a risk control plan in place on how they're going to mitigate any concerns of vermin, being that their kitchens can now be unenclosed. And so still working statewide on what those plans would look like to have consistency throughout the counties. The next one, AB 671, this is the one that is putting a state mandate of 10 days for resubmitted plans to be reviewed. Previously, the state mandate was 20 days for all submitted plans in retail food code. Now it's making any resubmittals go down to 10 days. This one's going to require our plan check team to staff up in order to meet this state demand. There could be other impacts to the program or our operational program, but we're still trying to work out what that's going to be and how that's going to impact the rest of what we're able to do through our plan check unit. And then the last one, SB 635. This one is really just focusing on sharing of information with federal agencies regarding sidewalk vendors, and also restricts the potential for using third-party companies to help with enforcement of sidewalk vendors. So adding some additional challenges to what we're already facing with sidewalk vendors statewide. Do you want me to questions at the end, or?
I think per person, and so if there's questions for you.
Anybody have any questions on any of the bills for my programs or how it might impact us?
Do you have like any, what has changed on the first one, the registered REHS one?
Okay, so the main change, a trainee used to have 3 years to obtain that REHS certification. Now they're going to have 5. So allows more time for them to cross-train across all the programs that they had, which helps us with operational flexibility. So instead of having them try to cross-train in the 3 years, we now have 5 years to do it, which is great. It also allows a truncated time frame between taking the exams. So before it would be 3 months, and then a year before they can take it if they did not pass. Now it's just 90 days every single time. So it allows them more frequent to take that exam. I don't have the details on the educational requirements, but it does broaden it a little bit more to pull in people from different kind of biological sciences, have a little bit of range of background, and then of course clarifies what kind of cross-training they can do to meet the requirements.
I'll just add the significance of this for like our department and all that. There's a lot of functions that we do, like our food program and some other programs where this specific certification is a state requirement. And so, when folks are having difficulty obtaining the certification for whatever reason, for some of the things that Ryan highlighted, that makes hiring and staffing a little bit more difficult. And so this helps get people into the field and helps them more avenues to get the certification essentially for those workers.
As GSU is an approved institution from the REHS, with respect to the need, do you know how many in the workforce, what is the need of this degree? It's like per, I don't know, or within San Diego County? Do you have an idea?
Well, like JR said, it handles, there's very specific programs. So my food program and my swimming pool program all need to have an REHS. And so I'm probably looking at about 75 to 80 staff that just cover those 2 programs that would require to have this.
Thank you.
Ryan, could you elaborate on SB 635? At first blush, I thought it had mostly to do with interfering with immigration status, but the more I read that, the more it looks like it's gutting the county's ability to enforce
like any sidewalk vendor with real penalties.
Yeah, that's already been gutted. So this one changes it and really looks at using third-party agencies to help with enforcement. So if a city or a county is contracted with maybe even code enforcement or a public waste management company to help with disposal of all of this, this is saying that you can't use those parties anymore to do that, to do any impoundment. Now, we still have our authority within our retail food code to do it. However, retail food code was previously restricted down to it being administrative citations only, no misdemeanor penalties. So the real impact to what we're able to do has already been done. This is now impacting those that might be a small county that needed to contract out some of their services. We don't here in our county. We don't have a contract we use for impounding of equipment or food or anything like that. But smaller counties that might need that would no longer be able to use that as a resource. So here locally, it's not going to change what we're already seeing as our major challenges with addressing this. Got you. All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, I'll take over. I'm Joanne Lee. I'm the other chief for the Food, Water, and Housing Division. So continuing on page 3 for the Housing Bill AB 628. This bill actually helps our staff enforce if there are stove or refrigerator repair needs. Previously, that was not actually stated in housing law, so it was hard for tenants to be able to complain about utilities, I guess, or stove refrigerator repair needs and landlords needing to replace it. So that bill does help the tenants now. Next page, SB 655. This bill originally came in to help with determining a maximum indoor temperature, which was set at 82. But as the bill progressed through the legislative cycle, that number was removed completely. And so the bill actually winds up being approved as a more general statement. We will coordinate with HCD to determine what their guidance is going to be. But with the last read of the bill, it was more as a guidance that any type of policy change would need to incorporate some kind of determination of a max indoor temp. So I think they are trying to leave that window open because throughout the state, there could be different levels. And so we'll just be coordinating with HCD to determine if there's going to be region-specific max indoor temperatures.
And 82 was the previous suggestion.
And they removed the number completely, yeah.
I mean,
I can do it.
Personally, but
I'm going to tap back in for AB 253. This one is really a minor bill for our land use program. It was really geared more towards residential building permits, which goes through our planning development services here in the county. And so for us, we just look at it as anything that is being built in residential capacity that might need a septic system installed still has to go through our department and our program for the review of that. This bill didn't change anything or put any mandates on our septic program. So really the challenges are going to be just kind of a homeowner navigating, again, both agencies and the building departments to meet their needs of this, but it has no impact to our program for septic installations.
Right, and then the last bill for our solid waste program, SB 279. This was a bill allowing a little bit more flexibility on compostable materials. It doesn't have a significant impact on our program. The only thing that we'll be monitoring is whether or not we'll receive more complaints for certain sites that may think that they have the capacity to do this. And so we'll be monitoring to see if those increased complaints then affect our program and how we'll recover fees for them. And then programmatically, I just wanted to share like good news with some caveat. I don't know if you knew that on Sunday, we actually opened the TJ Slough for the first time since December of 2021. It was short-lived though. I think the following day we had to reclose it, and currently we're in a general rate advisory. But it was very exciting news that we were able to open for the first time in many, many years.
That's the most southern beach that we have.
Correct, by the border.
By the border. And the opening was because the flow has been decreasing in the river a lot. So the work that IBWC is doing to make some improvements to the treatment plant, we are seeing that from a decreased flows.
Thanks, Deb.
How long's it been since it was open?
December 8th, 2021 was when we closed it.
Wow, okay.
It's not the Imperial Beach,
Further south,
further. s-
Yeah.
Further south.
Porterfield Park Monument, yeah,
Issue areas.
Yeah.
the TJ Slough.
Go on a field trip this weekend. Need to go find this.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharon Priest. I am a program coordinator for the Hazardous Materials Division. I'm filling in today for Zurata Moreno. She's our chief, but she's attending a Cuba managers meeting out of the county. So I can provide an update. We don't have legislation to review, but programmatically what we've got going on is preparation for our triennial Cuba evaluation by Cal EPA. So we are preparing for that. And this is a evaluation of our performance in our duties as the Certified Unified Program Agency, regulating the storage and handling of hazardous materials and hazardous wastes. We also have a medical waste program. And they review our activities over a 2-year period. So we have our eval is scheduled for the end of this calendar year. They'll be taking a look at how well we delivered our programs and implemented them for 23 and 24. And I think that is our short-term summary I can provide today. Long-term, we are looking at the development of a new version of the California Environmental Reporting System, which has been a long time in the development and making and getting stretched out a little bit. So beginning of 2027 is our next horizon for the first stage of the implementation of that portal. It's a portal that our regulated entities are required to enter their hazardous materials inventory and emergency response plans and all. There's a lot of documentation that gets put in there. So.
Nothing for CHD.
I'll just add one other thing that we are kind of pleased to report. So in our vector control program, at a statewide conference of environmental health directors, there's several kind of innovations that are presented on by agencies like throughout the state, environmental health agencies throughout the state. So our vector control program presented on 3D printing, which we had as a topic several months ago. And so out of the presentations, out of the 3 jurisdictions that were presenting, they won the award for environmental health excellence. So yes, round of applause. Just wanted to report that out. I know that 3D printing, like I said, we have it as a topic, and so that's something that we're able to share at a state level, and some other folks are interested in that.
And Saren gave the presentation and did fantastic and represented our department well.
Thank you. It was very easy to present because, like I always say, the vector control team is very innovative, cost conscious, works with what they have. And they're leading in terms of at least the 3D printing and making things in-house. So it was easy to present their work and have the support of the entire team. But they're well.
So will we get to 3D print things and then sell them to Los Angeles and San Francisco? And
We should consider that and capitalize on some of the money.
we start like an Etsy page or something.
A lot of agencies did reach out to us and we are in conversation with them because they face similar challenges like our program does. So we are sharing everything for free, all our designs and stuff for free with them, like good neighbors, but it's good stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
What was the name of the conference?
It was the California Conference of Environmental Health Directors, CCT. So it's a leadership of all the environmental health agencies.
And I think that was one of the things that we highlighted on an annual report last year, the year before, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we reviewed San Diego County has won 5 out of the past like decade. We won 5 times. Yeah, for different topics.
And this
Something
was
like
2 years in a row.
I know, right?
Gotta pat ourselves on
2
the back.
years in a row, which is
2 years
rare.
ago.
Yeah. Impressive.
Good streak.
Anything else? We're good? Okay.
Ready to adjourn.
Everybody's favorite section, item number 8, adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? All right. I'll second that. All in favor? I will. Okay, meeting adjourned.